Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Hangover on Steel Curtain Network. I'm your host, Daniel, alongside with me, Shannon White. Shannon, how are you doing today?
I'm always happy to be here with you, Daniel J., my brother from another mother, and just looking forward to talking some Steeler football.
Oh man, me too, man. It's been it's an exciting time right before a dead spot, so to speak, where there won't be any news. The Steelers have had a couple of weeks of OTAs. There's some players are turning heads, things of that nature. But before we get into that, we got a little bit of some breaking news. The Steelers have a retirement after 32 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Head athletic trainer John Norwig has announced his retirement. Nothing too crazy, nothing too big, but something that is notable, and for us to at least say congratulations to you, Mr. John Norwig, on your career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got two. He's been to 4 Super Bowls. I've seen the Steelers win 2 of them. Congratulations. Are you familiar with John Norwig by any chance?
No, I mean, I've heard him mentioned anytime there was an injury or somebody was rehabbing, then those guys are prominent. But he's obviously done a great job. That's impressive to have that length of resume and longevity in the NFL. So, yeah, congratulations.
For sure. Congratulations. And he's on to his next bit of life's work, as Chuck Noll would say. Another breaking news, and I'm glad we have you on the show, Shannon, because I know you're an expert in this, in these guys, but Steelers have finally filled in the 90-man roster. They have released first wide receiver Cody Crest and have signed offensive lineman Jared Williams and running back Darius Hagans. I kid. I'm not sure if you are aware of who these 2 gentlemen are, but if so, please enlighten us with who these guys are.
Well, first off, Cody Crest, we hardly knew you.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get out of OTAs. We have OTAs the rest of this week, and then you have the mandatory the next week, and then we're going to, as you said, we're going to have that dead period. But I just have a feeling with Con and Waddle and these guys that we're going to have some action between the end of next week and training camp. Wouldn't shock me if there was a Alex Highsmith signing extension or even another move or two, because they're doing something every week and it's exciting. The young man, the offensive tackle, Waddle knows him from his time in Philly. I was not familiar with him at all. And I had to do a quick dive on him before the podcast. He's got excellent length and incredibly long arms, almost 36-inch arms.
Oh, wow.
He was undrafted, so he's a project. This is a guy that, like some of the guys in the past, say James Harrison, who got multiple invitations to camp before he ever made it. That's what this kid could be. And because you can't coach 36-inch arms. So he's the kind of guy that you could get that could develop maybe as a good solid backup someday. And he's 100%. Predominantly a right tackle. He played 7 years of college football.
Oh, geez.
So he's kind of like the Tommy Boy of offensive tackles. And then, he never wanted to leave college, obviously. So, but no, there's potential there as a project because of that length. But don't expect him to make the practice squad even this year, because he's already been on a couple practice squads, and so people are trying to find the right spot to develop him.
100%.
And I really know nothing about the running back. I know that they're bringing in, again, we need camp bodies right now.
Right. Yeah, 100%. When it comes to Jared Williams, somebody needed to tell him that you don't necessarily have to be in college to go to spring break.
That's right.
Yeah, I've been to a few where I was not, attending any universities at the time. So you could have left a while ago, buddy. You could have left. But I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he'll be filling in a couple of spots for the Steelers for depth at the very least. Get some camp bodies, if not for both of these guys. And perhaps maybe they do flash, maybe they do end up showing something. So you and I had a conversation briefly this morning, when we're coming up with topics of discussion. And you told me, like, why does some members of the Steelers Nation get frustrated when positive outlook of others when it comes to the Steelers? So I feel that there's going to be a Shannon rant coming right about now. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm gonna try not to be so long-winded. We all look at things a different way. I'm, pretty much perpetually positive. So I see things, the potential there, not the shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this about myself. So I try to temperance all my opinions and observations with a little bit of cynicism because I'm trying to balance it out. But for an example, I talk glowingly about Kenny Pickett. I'm a very positive evaluator of Kenny Pickett's potential because anytime you bring in a young quarterback, they have to prove they have the it factor.
Right.
And a lot of things go into that: leadership, maturity, short-term memory loss. That you make a mistake, you can come right back, and you got the confidence you don't go in a shell like a turtle.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the clutch factor. Well, I seen all that out of Kenny Pickett last year, even though he was in a very anemic offense that has to improve. That is for sure. He has proven nothing yet, but he has shown the net factor that we've seen guys that's been in the league putting up 3,000, 4,000 yard seasons that have not showed the it factor, especially to get over the hump at the end. I talked about the similarities in Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger a while back. Aaron Rodgers has won one Super Bowl, and he ought to hug Rashard Mendenhall every day. How many times have they had the number one seed going into the NFC playoffs, playing in a weaker division in the NFC that they owned? He'll tell you he owns that division. So they've always had home field advantage, but they only made it to one Super Bowl. And he won it. But how many times he lost the NFC Championship game? If he got that far. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of things that go into making a quarterback. Kenny Pickett might never be one of the guys, top 5 guys that everybody's like, oh, man, look at that arm, look at that size, look at that. All these intangibles and attributes. But if he's a winner, and he does that through being clutch and through his leadership, and the players love him and want to play hard for him, that's very Joe Montana-esque.
Right.
And I'll take it. Organizations, rosters, complete rosters win Super Bowls, win championships. A lot of guys who win multiple MVPs do not win Super Bowls. So I think Pickett could be another part of this championship roster that the Steelers are trying to build. Now, again, he's proven nothing yet, and some people have a different view of it.
Right.
My problem is a lot of the different view, because of our history, because of our articles, our discussion threads, I know that a lot of these people did not want them to select Pickett in the first place.
Right.
They either did not want a quarterback last year because they said it was a weak class, or they wanted Malik Willis, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Steelers went against their wishes, now it's like we're going to be anti-Pickett to a point. We're going to question him even more so. We're not going to acknowledge the positives he showed last year. We're going to focus on the negatives. That's the kind of thing that I think is unfair to Kenny Pickett, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and anybody who writes or does a podcast from a positive angle or positive viewpoint.
Right, 100%. I think, expectations last year were probably a little bit higher than expected, or a lot of people had their expectations higher than they should. Let me rephrase that. Mm-hmm. Rookie quarterback, or even if it was Mitch Trubisky early on, him being new to the team, hadn't started in a while, hadn't played a lot of meaningful football. To go into this, or going in last season, and not think that there was going to be some bumps and bruises or growing pains associated with that. You probably had some higher expectations that were unrealistic. Just being honest. Now, I will say I was probably one of those guys who, I'll raise my hand first, that wasn't a fan of drafting Kenny Pickett. I didn't want a quarterback, period, in last year's draft. I was, hoping that the Steelers would get Hamlin Hamilton from the who's now with the member of the Ravens, and
Mm-hmm.
and what's that guy's name? The big boy from who went to the Eagles, Georgia.
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis. There it is. I knew it was Jordan. I couldn't, for some reason, I kept thinking Addison, and I was like, I know that's not him. I know that's a receiver. But yeah, Jordan Davis. Those were the two guys that I was like, I'd like the Steelers to go out there and grab it, pick up something else later, and then, going through preseason last year, I saw a little bit of flashes from Kenny Pickett. He had some of that, be able to stick it and, stay in the pocket, deliver a pass over the middle or wherever it needed to be with pressure coming up into his face, and do it with confidence and accuracy. And so I was excited. I was one that I thought that, the Steelers should have started Kenny Pickett week one. I was like, we need to see what we have in him. And, when he did come in, I'll say that I was a little bit skeptical of his performance, but what kind of turned my opinion around, or started to turn my opinion around, was it was when he'd had those two back-to-back games where, one against the Raiders, one against the Ravens, where he came back and had game-winning drives in that situation. He had a game against Miami where he was in a similar situation twice, the game in his hands, the ball in his hands too, and he ended up throwing 2 interceptions. So you could see the progression as the season went along, and he won me over, around, somewhere around that time. And I thought, what, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers got a guy. And I think that we can't tell whether or not he is a guy or not until probably the end of next year, and if he's not that great this year, everybody's going to blame Matt Canada anyways. So
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't make a difference.
But one thing about it is you're honest about it, that you didn't want him to take a quarterback.
Right.
I did not necessarily want him to take a quarterback. I didn't want him to take Malik Willis because I knew this kid is super raw and he won't be ready for 2 or 3 years. Right. Tennessee, by taking him and then starting him too early, really hurt his development, has hurt his confidence, and now he might not ever be what location. Where you go matters. The culture, the fit, that was not the right place. But you're being honest about it. It's like everybody knows I want Sky Moore last year. That was my receiver target, Pittsburgh kid, loved the Steelers. I think it would be a great fit in the offense. The Steelers took George Pickens. Now, because I wanted Sky Moore, once he took George Pickens, guess who my guy is? George Pickens. That's because I'm a Steeler fan. I will root for these guys because they are a Pittsburgh Steeler now. They are part of the family. They're in there fighting and working every day. I will root for those guys. Same thing with Najee Harris. I wanted Creed Humphreys. Everybody know I wanted Creed Humphrey. But they selected Najee Harris. I've been nothing but a supporter of that young man since they took him. But we're seeing people who did not necessarily want Kenny Pickett. It's one thing to have the view you had and wanted them to maybe go another route and develop the roster and maybe pick a quarterback in the future. Right. That's fine. But you're not holding it against Kenny Pickett that he was selected.
Right, exactly.
You're seeing people who there's an angle and an edge to every comment and everything we see that they're like, well, there's no way he can be the guy because he's the first rookie quarterback drafted after being retired. No, it doesn't mean it's impossible. There is teams that went from one good quarterback to another good quarterback. Now, I know Ben was great, but that doesn't mean Kenny Pickett can't be good.
Right.
I read in a again, it's the attitude, it's the view. I read in a comment today, somebody said, well, Hakeem Butler, y'all talking about Hakeem Butler, real positive. Well, he got drafted, was on 2 teams out of the NFL. So, I mean, they said there was a less than a 1% chance he makes the roster and does anything. Less than 1%? We're talking about Dumb and Dumber odds here, people. So you're saying there's a chance. No, I mean, the guy has talent. Again, location. He went to the Arizona Cardinals, which is our mess. They got a little bitty quarterback who would rather play video games than learn the playbook. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even remember who his quarterback was at first when he got there, but they've had a quarterback issue for a while. Then he goes to Philadelphia before Hurts become what he became last season. So a lot of times it's who you have throwing you the football. It's the offensive scheme. Are you a fit there? Who's your competition for targets at that location? All I'm saying is Butler has talent, and now he has an opportunity, a real opportunity. Now, what he does with it's up to him.
Right.
But he might now be in the right place in his career, his maturity level, and he has a proper motivation to be successful. But to say that somebody has less than 1% chance to be successful, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like you're absolutely right. I mean, the less than 1% chance, especially this early. I mean, who knows how a person's going to be participating or how they're going to perform in training camp. You know, I mean, unfortunately, injuries do happen. Those things can occur. That could definitely get somebody moved up onto the roster spot or into the depth chart. I mean, and so, having odds like that is pretty janky. But to go back to what you were saying about Kenny Pickett, absolutely. You got to keep your mind open. And I guess the other thing is too, I didn't have that high of an expectation for the Steelers last season. I always think, I'm a Steelers fan, so I have some black and gold goggles that they can win every game that they go into, and I root for every game that they go into. Exactly. But, at the end of the day as well, I do understand that there was going to be some growing pains last season. And, for me, when I looked at that, I had stated, if the Steelers can kind of be respectable, the second half of the season and win about half of their games down the line, I think that's going to be a right outlook or a right trajectory for the future. And they did better than that. They went 7-2 down the line. And so, for folks or individuals to be upset right now about their team when this is just probably the time where you're supposed to be the most positive or have the most positive outlook, this is where you have all of the optimism in the world. You just got your draft picks in, your team's coming together. You filled in some spots. You got some free agents. You don't know how the team is going to, build or have their chemistry put together yet. But that's the good part about this is to feel that they're coming along in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Only time will tell those things. But right now is the optimistic time. Knock on wood, nobody's gotten seriously hurt or anything like that. And that's the other thing that's, one of the better news out of training camp thus far. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about individual players and OTAs. So don't go anywhere. On YouTube side, just hang on tight. It'll take about 5 seconds. Everywhere else, just have a few words from our sponsors. And we're back. Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm Daniel J. along with Shannon White. We're going to be talking about some individual players and how they've done so far in training camp. But before we do you have anything you want to plug? Any articles that are coming out this week, or any YouTube shows you'll be showing up later on, maybe on Wednesday or so?
No, I did got the first opportunity to do a podcast with Jeff Hartman. This morning on Let's Ride, and that was a blast, and I knew it would be. And so you can check that out. And then like I said on the podcast this morning, that the next article, because on the curtain call this Wednesday, we're going to focus. Last week we focused on the wide receiver position, and this week we're going to focus on the outside linebacker position. So right. The next article is going to cover the outside linebackers, some I have trouble saying that word. Some optimism and some, areas of concern. So right. That's what we'll focus on there. But that's going to be the next two things this week.
Nice. So how was doing the podcast with Jeff there?
Oh, it was great. We're of a similar mindset, just like me and you. So I always knew that if I got to do a podcast with him, we would have a good chemistry and a rapport that way. He is very positive about the Steelers, but also a realist, and right. I feel like that I try to be that, and so it went very well.
That's great. I haven't been able to get a chance to do a podcast. I got an exclusive with ABC before I got a podcast with Jeff. So it must be a long line.
Yeah, it's not worse, but I've been here a while.
Just kidding, y'all. Just kidding. And so, back back to the discussion at hand. We're going to be going over a couple of individuals that have had some pretty good performances in OTAs. The first name I want to throw at you is one that a lot of people have been discussing over the last week. He's had some big plays. His name is Corey Trice, 7th round rookie cornerback that the Pittsburgh Steelers selected. Very similar in build to a Joey Porter Jr. What are your thoughts on his performance thus far, as the reports that have come out about him?
Well, I was very positive about that selection from the fact that I thought he was going to be a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. Because when I was reading draft evaluations, they wasn't talking about the health concerns that the NFL, they said he was past his ACL injury. He had went to a smaller, lighter brace, and they didn't think that would hurt him. Well, he ended up falling to the 7th round because of those concerns. Talent-wise, size-wise, this is the 3rd or 4th round guy, and he really is. And the Steelers got a steal. So I've said that from the beginning. I did not write my grading the pick article immediately after his selection like I normally do, because I was trying to do research to figure out why he fell. And it was all rumor-based. Different teams' physicians were like, we're concerned about his maybe being out of alignment, and that's why he keeps suffering injuries to the same side in the lower body. And that can be a being out of balance and maybe need some chiropractic, some physical therapy, but all NFL teams have that readily available.
Right.
So talent-wise, I think the Steelers got a steal. Well, he's coming into camp. He's getting to work with Peterson, who's a great mentor. He's getting to work with his good buddy, JPJ, or Joey Porter Jr. And these guys are really flashing during OTAs. Now, again, there's no pads, there's no hitting, but you see their fluidity. You see how guys with that length, at that height, and that reach, with 4.47, 4.46 speed, how they're just flowing all over the field. It's saying, hey, Steelers are going to press a lot more. This is going to be a more aggressive secondary. These guys can match up with size of a T. Higgins. If they get matched up with a Kelsey or a bigger tight end, even they have the length and the height as we seen, say, Corey Wooten last year with Seattle Seahawks, a guy who fell into draft some and become a star for the Seahawks. So that's what Trice. Everybody kept saying, well, you're pumping up Trice again, and this is a 7th round pick, and the chances of a 7th round pick making an impact, even making the team as a special teams guy is small. Him ever becoming a starter, it happens. It happens because sometimes guys fall, not from a lack of talent, but for a concern that maybe isn't warranted. These health concerns, unless they pop up again, it was rumors and stuff that scared teams off. But the talent was there. He was a top player at Purdue, which is a Power 5 conference. So he really has more potential. 7th round guys are either projects or they're potential guys with injury concerns. He's obviously the potential guy that had some injury concerns, and hopefully he's overcome those.
100%. I when I saw his game, or when I've looked at his ability, is it's highlights and things of that nature. So it's going to pump up his skill, but it really does look like he's got his head in the game. A lot of those interceptions that he had were interceptions where he was understanding what the offense was trying to do to him or to the defense, and then even leaving his position and coming off and coming up into a shorter route or a route underneath, and in one situation intercepting the ball. And so I thought he was pretty good. Watching his highlights, looking at his tape, looking at those things. Do you think that this defense, I know you mentioned that this team is going to be one that's going to be pressing a lot. You think that it is beneficial to have majority of your cornerbacks be one style, a press style cornerback, or should there be a little bit of diversity in there, get some zone guys in, things of that nature?
Well, I think they'll really coach them up to these guys are really press coverage specialists.
Right.
But they have the ability in short areas, especially if they're keeping the play in front of them, to plant and break on the ball. And both solid tacklers with that length and the strength. So I think you're going to see You'll still see some zone. The Steelers just mix and match. They really do. But in the past, they have not been able to press because they did not have the athletes, they did not have the length, and they did not have the speed. Well, now with Peterson and Joey Porter Jr., Trace, even James Pierre. James Pierre, if people didn't notice, late in the season last year when they played the Raiders, they put Pierre on I cannot think of their top receiver's name now. I see it, but I can't think of it. But anyway, they put Pierre on the Raiders' top receiver, and he followed him around the whole game. And he really shut him down.
Adams?
Yes, Adams. He followed him around the whole game, and when he was on him, he had like 3 catches for 18 yards.
Right.
So Pierre is actually the kind of guy who likes to press. Because a lot of times people say, well, he don't have any speed or he doesn't have ideal speed. But if you can get your hand on a guy, you can stay close to him. You know, you might give up a penalty every once in a while for a grab or a tug here and there, but he wants to be close because if he's playing off and that guy gets a full head of steam coming at him, he's going to torch you. So He wants to be up close and slow his release off the line. And that's what Pierre was able to do against one of the top receivers in the NFL. So I see a change, a philosophical shift in how the Steelers are going to play coverage this year.
100%. I mean, I think you're right. And this is going to allow for more, like you said, an aggressive team. The Steelers have been a team that a couple of years ago, like back, 2019, 2020, when they were leading the NFL in sacks, they weren't a team that was blitzing a lot. Here recently, they've been blitzing quite a bit. Do you think by going to more of a press coverage style defense that's going to open up the blitz more, or do you think they'll go back to a less blitz happy defense?
Well, a lot of it last year, the reason they didn't lead the league in sacks against because of Watt's injury, obviously.
Right.
They do a lot of combo blitzes, and that they swing that guy outside and let him come in through an A gap, and they do things a little different. They mix it up. There's usually one guy blitzing, and the other guys are their base. But last year when Brian Flores was with Pittsburgh, I thought for sure because he replaced Butler, and I thought for sure that we'd see some zero all-out blitzes and stuff because he'd done that in the past at other places. But you quickly realized that he could not do that because they didn't have the cornerbacks. They didn't have the stud guys who could cover without running a high risk of giving up a big play. Now, even if you're going to, you can do that. Hey, you're beat, grab. Give up a 15-yard penalty, live to fight another down. These guys are really good at that. And they got Peterson, who's great at that, teaching them.
Right.
So I think that you'll see a wider variety of pass rush. The guys they're going to have on the field, a lot of them have pass rush ability, even the inside guys. And a lot of the guys have the athleticism, as we know that Highsmith and White have, to even drop back and play some zone coverage there in the middle. I think this press coverage and the 2 deep safeties in Fitzpatrick and Kazee gives the Steelers defensive coordinator more opportunity for creativity and to mix up his coverages more because they was a little predictable at times last year, especially early in the season.
100%. And so moving off of Corey Trice and the defensive backs for a second onto the other side of the field, Calvin Austin III, he looks fast. It looks like he's back to what he was prior to the foot injury. You had on All Things Covered podcast featuring Brian McFadden and Patrick Peterson. He spoke about how quick Calvin Austin III is, that he's got some wheels. I think he said that Joker's got some wheels. Kind of left him behind a little bit, had to did a little pull and tug to get back in position. According to Pat P, he got back in position. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it looks like Calvin Austin's going to be a pretty big part of this Steelers offense. What do you think we can expect from him? When Patrick Peterson was talking about him, he said that he went and lined up against him on the outside. A lot of folks are thinking that he could be lining up on the inside at slot. In college, he was primarily an outside wide receiver, though. Where does he find a role on this offense?
I think they'll move him around. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the two guys I'm really interested to see this year is Connor Hayward at H-back and Calvin Austin III. The
Right.
reason why is because both guys, you could start out, you could put them in the backfield and roll them out at the start of a stat. You could send them in motion for a jet sweep, as we've seen with Hayward last year. You can move them around. If you have, let's say, Darnell Washington or
Right.
Keem Butler on the field at the same time with the Calvin Austin III,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have the right guy to cover these two or these three guys, because if you get them mixed up and the wrong guy's covering the wrong one, they're in trouble. It just creates so many mismatches. And the one thing the Steelers lacked last year on offense more than anything was splash plays. I think I read they had 3 plays of over 40 yards all season.
Oh, wow.
And we've seen Ben have that in a game.
Yeah.
Back with AB and Martavius Wright and all them.
In a half.
Yeah. So that just shows how anemic and how desperately they needed speed and big play potential. Well, Washington can bring that. I think Connor Hayward can bring that at times, depending on matchup. Calvin Austin definitely can bring that with that kind of speed he has. Austin's got to prove he can be durable enough once the live hitting starts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to prove that he can be tough enough to take the hits that he's going to have to take. Some guys can. Your Darren Sproles and guys that are even smaller than him have proven that they can do. You know, Tariq Hill ain't a whole lot bigger than him. But he's stocky, but he's proven to be tough. The thing is, you know, you got to catch him before you can hit him. And Austin, one difference in him and a lot of the other guys that are fast, they're straight fast.
Right.
Austin has great elusiveness and short area quickness. So it's going to maybe be hard to get a clean shot on him. And if that's the case, I think he could be a real weapon in this offense.
100%. I'm excited to see what this young man can bring. I think it was Brian Brown who said in the live chat that he's or maybe it was Afton for it. I'm sorry, but that he's a possible. You know, he feels like an extra 4th round pick because we didn't get to utilize the Steelers didn't get to utilize him last year, and you know, I see it the same way as well. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for his speed. You know, I remember the story about his draft that the Baltimore Ravens were looking to be picking him up and were pretty upset when the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know, snagged him up. And so, you know, that's another, you know, take that to John Harbaugh and company out there. And so,
hey, one more thing, and I thought it was what you was getting ready to mention. If you remember during the draft, they asked Sauce Gardner, who's the best young cornerback to come into the NFL in forever since Darnell Revis. Or Darrell Revis, they asked him who was his toughest cover from college, and he said Calvin Austin III. Because he said he was so Gardner's not slow, but he said that Austin was so quick that he couldn't hardly get his hands on him. He couldn't get a jam on him or a press. That is a great to go on your resume when the best young cornerback in the NFL said you was his toughest college cover. So I'm very excited about that. One more thing I want to mention. Everybody needs to hit the like button if at all possible. You know, don't leave us hanging out there. We're sitting at 3 right now. We need a few more.
Oh, yeah, we need a lot more than that. Let's get it going, y'all. Let's get it going. And so, you know, I'm excited about him. I'm excited about Calvin Austin. And you're right. You know, his speed is going to add another dynamic, another element to this team. I mean, you line them up in trips. You have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Calvin Austin out there on one side, let's just say, or whatever the case may be, or on the field. You're going to have a hard time double covering some of these guys. And, you know, if you have a Calvin Austin on your 3rd best cornerback out there on one-on-one coverage, I mean, that's a win in my opinion. You know, especially with that speed, you know, just get the ball to him. Get the ball to him. I think that's why Kenny Pickett's been, you know, hitting the weight so much. And there's been a lot, you know, going into Kenny Pickett, there's been a lot of talk about, like, for instance, Darnell Washington mentioned that there was a difference in velocity between, you know, like a Stetson from Georgia in college to a Kenny Pickett with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the pros. And there's more velocity and things of that nature. I love to hear that because, you know, that means it's not just bulk that has, come with Kenny Pickett's size that he's gotten, through this year. It's also strength and power, and he's able to use it and utilize it. I'm super excited about this team. Another player that, maybe this might not be, this guy may not be on the best of terms with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but a guy that I think, if all indications are correct, might not just make the team, but have a helmet. And that's number 53, Kendrick Green, taking, second team snaps at center. Looks like he's gone back. What are your thoughts on his possibility of him rejuvenating his career?
When we were talking earlier today and was talking about certain players that I thought needed to be mentioned, the reason I wanted to talk about Kendrick Green is because he was thrown in a situation and he's had multiple teammates come out and support him for being thrown into the NFL situation of trying to be a starting center when you've never really played the position and you have so much to learn. The expectations were unrealistic. It was based only on his athleticism, which is superior, but experience-wise, he was like an infant. He was learning everything for the first time. And you've seen that he got to where he was just like in a cloud, a fog. He was missing the basic blocks because he was confusing himself. He didn't know what was going on. Then I was so disappointed last year, and that they talked to him, I think because they wasn't happy with Kevin Dotson. They're like, we'll try you out of guard. Oh, man, he put in all this work to be a guard. Even though physically and athletically he will never play guard in the NFL for an extended period of time because his arms is too short. He's too short. He has ability to play center. He has great athleticism for the position. People are saying move him to fullback because he's that athletic.
Right.
But if he's going to play and stay in the NFL, he is going to be a center. Well, now they do not need him to be a starting center anymore. Now they're looking for a backup. He is the right price. He is somebody they've invested a draft pick in. And now he is back working on the interior. I see where he was talking about he's been working and just talking with Pat Meyer, the offensive line coach. And he is really trying. He's committed to learning the center position. If his mental ability can catch up with his athleticism and physical ability, he can be a better backup than, say, a J.C. Hassenauer was, who had severe physical limitations. If Green can learn the position and his athleticism, he would be possibly the most athletic backup center in the NFL. But he has to commit because playing center is so much more than just athleticism. It's communication, it's leadership, it's recognition of what the defense is throwing at you, calling out line adjustments. It's all those things that teams count on that rookie center or the center to do. One thing that gives me hope is if you look who surrounded Green when he come in the NFL, a Kevin Dotson and he's no longer with the Steelers. Cannot think of his name now. I think he was with the Redskins last year. The guy that replaced the Castro when we lost him to, he retired. But,
right. No, oh gosh, I can think.
I want to say Colbert, but it ain't Colbert.
No.
But anyway.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Green was surrounded by new guys who was new to the system, and he was put in a terrible position. And last year, again, he was playing out of position at guard. This year, he's going to have Samalu on one side if he does have to go in there, and have James Daniels on the other side. He is in a much better position for success. So as much as I wanted to write him off and said he's gone and he's done, if you look at the guys that are out there that could possibly be a backup center, he is actually better than most of those guys, and he has a real shot at making this roster.
Was it Trey Turner?
There you go, Trey Turner.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. No, yeah, he's got a chance. He's got a chance to make the team, make the roster. He's definitely, if he ends up being the backup center, then he'll end up having a helmet. And, for a guy that the Steelers ended up investing a third-round pick into, you'd rather have him on the team and, being good quality depth. If he's able to be worthy of the 53-man roster selection, right? I mean, if he's worthy of the position, worthy of playing, you rather have him out there, somebody you invested a third round in, than versus, Spencer Addison, who you invested a seventh round in, or somebody off the street. You want to at least recuperate some of that draft value that you spent on him. And I'm rooting for him until he's no longer wearing the Steelers jersey. Then I'll still wish him the best. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter in the NFL or anything like that, but he can make a career for himself as a backup, and maybe even take on a smaller role at fullback on the goal line. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, another thing that the Steelers are wanting to become a run heavy, smash mouth football team. They want to be able to be a outside zone blocking team. They brought in monster tight ends. They got Darnell Washington. They've got big receivers, and let's say Akeem Butler, Miles Boykin, even Robertson, the newcomer. All these guys have got size that can run block, to where they should be effective in outside zone. Mm-hmm. There's where Green's athleticism, speed, and mobility really shows up. So he would be – that's why the Steelers tried him at guard last year over Dotson, because Dotson lacks the mobility, the ideal mobility, to play this scheme of outside zone, whereas Green is perfect for it. He was just playing out of position. So I'm willing to give him another chance if I see that he's fully committed to learn how to play center.
Me too. I'm willing to give him another chance as long as he's also a backup. So
yes.
I don't want to see
Mason Cole's not going anywhere.
No, not at all, not at all. But we're getting kind of close to the end here. I do got to get going here pretty soon. Do you have any final words, Shannon, before we let everybody go?
No, just one of the things I did want to mention, and you said it, we all got to be keeping our fingers crossed with that. No injuries, serious injuries. That could totally reshape everything in the outlook for this season. So I also am looking forward to hearing about that extension for Alex Highsmith, because when they talk about what a close friendship that he has with Omar Khan, his love for Pittsburgh, the culture, he wants to be here. This is a no-brainer, guys. Should be an open and shut thing. They say they've got the amount really worked out. They're just trying to, iron out the details. But I'm looking forward to that, because I want to see Alex Highsmith in the black and gold long term.
I agree 100%. I'm on your side, and I echo the same thing. Right now, go full circle, guys. Just appreciate, right now that the Steelers are coming together. They're not going to lose anytime soon. So let's get the optimism up, man. No need to be so negative all the time. Let's look forward to, finishing out this week of OTAs, and then, training camp and things of that nature to come. And then it's preseason, and then it's time for the games, time that we all love. But with that being said, we're the Hangover. Shannon, take us out.